You might think you know the story, the Garden of Eden, forbidding fruit, tree of life. But what if these symbols, what if they're more than just literal? Maybe revealing some profound truths about choice, consequence, even love itself. Today, we're taking a deep dive. We've got some powerful sources that really peel back the layers on this iconic narrative. We're exploring some surprising insights, really, into why certain choices seem to lead towards life and, well, others towards destruction. Okay, let's try to unpack this a bit. The material we looked at, it puts forward this idea that when Adam was expelled from Eden, after eating the fruit, Genesis 3, it wasn't just about, a physical action. These texts powerfully argue that the tree of knowledge of good and evil, it was actually acting like a mirror.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating here is how these sources suggest the fruit didn't create the disobedience. It more like it revealed the state of mind that was already there.
Yeah.
It showed Adam he was already, in a sense, dead or separated from God's life. Why? Because his heart didn't supremely love God. That's the key point they make.
Separation.
Right. This deeper view sort of exposes this desire for self-sovereignty, Adam wanting to decide good and evil for himself. So, okay, if the mirror just revealed what was already there, how do these sources then connect that state to the role of commandments in, defining what leads to life versus separation?
Right, that seems to be the crux of it. These sources explain God's commandments aren't just arbitrary rules. They're presented as the very foundation of his throne based on things like righteousness, justice, kindness, truth. And what's really striking is how they're framed not as burdens, but as fundamentally expressions of love.
That's such a crucial point they drive home.
Yeah.
It totally reframes the whole idea of law, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Not burden, but blessing.
Yeah.
Suggesting these commandments are maybe less about restriction and more about reflecting God's design for us to flourish. And if we connect that to the bigger picture, the sources say the same commandment can be either a tree of life or a tree of knowledge of good and evil. It just depends on the person's heart, their choice. For example, love your neighbor. That becomes life if you obey in love. But it becomes condemnation if you choose to, crush your neighbor instead. It really makes you think how one choice, uplift or diminish, mirrors these huge spiritual principles.
So, okay, if it's not about just avoiding a specific fruit or even our own self-effort, how do the sources connect this sort of inherent spiritual deadness we see reflected to the actual path towards what they call eternal life? What's the bridge?
Ah, that bridge. According to our sources, it leads us directly to the cross. They really highlight Jesus as the true tree of life, his sacrifice. It demonstrates God's ultimate love. And this is key. It enables our free will to be completed in love, not fear.
Completed in love, not fear. Explain that a bit more.
Well, it means it allows us to choose God's way freely, right? Driven by genuine affection, gratitude, not just obligation or dread of punishment. Understanding that sacrificial love, they argue, is the only path to overcome the death that was revealed by the disobedience.
And this is where, for me, the sources get really interesting. This whole journey from seeing our dead state through the tree of knowledge to then embracing true life through the cross, it's profoundly linked to what they call true wisdom.
Absolutely, yeah. Our sources define that wisdom quite specifically as fearing God, which they clarify isn't about being scared, but about recognizing, respecting God's standards, his judgment. And when we truly fear God in that sense, the result is loving him and our neighbor, which then leads us to obey his commandments naturally.
Okay, so that's the path to eternal life they lay out.
Exactly. And it contrasts sharply, they point out, with those who set their own standards of good and evil. That path leads them away from the tree of life towards ultimately destruction, which these sources describe as this profound separation from God, metaphorically called the lake of fire.
So, you see, the story of Eden, it's really so much more than just an ancient tale. It comes across in these texts as a profound teaching about the power of our choices, isn't it? And about how our hearts are mirrored and what the ultimate path to life really involves.
It really does. It encourages us, maybe you listening too, to consider, are my choices revealing a heart that seeks God's love and wisdom? Or am I trying to define good and evil just on my own terms? How does really grasping this deeper understanding maybe change the way you view your own daily decisions, and will there implications for your own journey towards flourishing?